So I am just now hitting recording. I should have done all of the, I remembered I stopped it while we were in the start room. So that's disappointing, but at least we can do the official introductions, although I appreciate you playing the hot seat with us for sure. So I will stop sharing my screen so we can formally introduce Nigel Moore. So Nigel of the Tech Tribe, would you give us just a touch of your background before we dive into kind of chatting about TBR, since we now know that that's the preferred language around it?
Well, I'll be as quick as I can. Started in the IT support MSP industry in 2003, working for another MSP, helped run that from a number of years, started my own in 2008, ran that up until 2016, sold it, started the Tech Tribe, where we now teach and coach and mentor and equip other MSPs around the world how to avoid all the stupid stuff that I did wrong for all of that decade and a half that I was in the space. And we've now got 2,000 odd MSPs inside the tribe, where we're giving them all that stuff to help them avoid all that silly, stupid stuff that I did. That's me. And as you probably heard from the Q&A at the beginning, I love surfing and love snowboarding, and love tracking my own blood for a weird little add-on in there.
Yeah, we definitely should add that for the people that weren't in the recording.
I need to put that in my bio.
Of longevity.
Yeah.
We did have the random question of, is Nigel going to freeze his head? So I don't know if you're going to do some of that that crazy.
I have a cold shower every day. I've had a cold shower every single day for the last year and a half now, I think, without a break. And when I travel to Europe, or even before a year and a half ago, because it was pre-COVID, I started it, and in Europe, it was darned hard in the middle of winter. I thought I had daggers stabbing into me when I dived under the cold showers over there. So I do try and
shower, but you can't find an ice cube. Yeah, that's Europe for you.
Exactly.
I have heard that is good for longevity. So
there's a little bit of science coming out. It's not 1,000% proven at the moment, but just it also, even if there is no health benefit, it just lights you up. Afterwards, I feel $1 million after a freezing cold shower. You get out and you're on fire. So even for that, it's worth it. But there is a lot of science going on behind cold immersion out there, and I do cold baths sometimes as well, which are very hard. There's this guy Wim Hof that is kind of a proponent in that space, that lives and breathes in the cold, and I've followed a bit of his stuff, and there is science coming out around it, but for me, it just fires me up in the mornings and wakes me up. And
I bet.
Oh yeah, in winter, at the moment, it's winter here in Australia, and the water is cold to the point it does feel like daggers when it hits you, which is good.
Yeah.
So yes, whoever asked that, I do freeze my head every day.
So do you do polar bear plunges? Is that an Australian thing?
No, it's not, because our water temperature out here doesn't get very cold.
Okay. Not even in the winter.
Yeah, no, even in the winter, I can go and surf out the front here in board shorts if I want to in the middle of winter, and it'll be cold, but not too cold. Water temperature's pretty warm.
Very nice.
Very, very nice. So now we're going to segue into TBRs, which won't be nearly as interesting for sure as a hobby of longevity, but I'm confident it will still be interesting. So, so you talked about the fact that we're going to undo whatever process you didn't have way back when, because you've definitely been behind
that I got wrong.
So why do you need a process around business reviews in general?
Yeah, because so in the MSP space, so we've gone through so many different evolutions as it's gone, and it's always, or the value of an MSP is becoming more and more and more to their clients. And originally it used to always just be around fixing Outlook issues and printing issues, and all that kind of stuff was the main core of what an MSP was. And nowadays that conversation's completely changed. And it's one of the biggest values of an MSP now is all around the business input that they can provide to their clients, and the business help and encouragement, and getting them to use their technology better, and all of that kind of stuff, and planning properly and budgeting properly and understanding risk management properly and all those sorts of things. And to me, that comes from and gets led from typically a place of some sort of regular TBR process, or an SBR process, or a QBR process. And so to me, if you're anywhere in the world now and you're running an MSP, one of the core fundamental parts of your MSP offering needs to be that regular, documented, proper cadenced TBR process. And to me, it's far more important now than help desk support. Help desk support used to be our primary thing, that we all focused on having awesome help desk support, but that commoditized, and it got to the point where we can now outsource and augment our help desk support with all these awesome teams that are around in the world now that can do it for us. and so that makes it not a thing that you can differentiate on either. You can now go out and you can still differentiate on the TBR process and that whole business advisor, trusted business advisor area of a business more than what you could 6 or probably 3, 4, 5 years ago, because businesses as well have realized in the past, especially in the past 2 years or 18 months with COVID, but in the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years, businesses are really, even small micro businesses are really understanding the power of technology now, and that it's an investment in the business. It's not a cost factor anymore. And that's awesome, because it opens up and allows them to be comfortable having these conversations around where can we use technology to better grow your business, or better help you innovate, or better help you be more profitable, or to execute faster, or whatever it happens to be, rather than just saying, hey, we solved X number of problems for you last week and we can make your outlook work better and stuff like that, which is just, those conversations are just conversations of the past.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that as a differentiator, because we actually worked with an MSP 4 or 5 months ago who came to us and said, I have to start doing technical business reviews. And I went, sounds like, yes. And he went, because my biggest competitor around town figured out that I don't do them. And now he's going to all my customers and poaching my customers by telling them that I should be doing this thing. He had to get into doing them defensively, not even as a disruptor, but as a, go protect my clients against this guy who's figured out that I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
so,
interesting.
That was a first. I'll give him that one.
And if he was losing clients to that particular other MSP, because of it, it shows that those clients were putting a high value on that particular offering as part of that particular part of the offering.
Yeah. Yep,
so
absolutely.
You kind of talked through a couple of the values. The next question I was going to ask was, what happens in terms of positive ROI for the MSP when they start standardizing process? We've seen some numbers around sort of additional MRR, on average, we're seeing maybe 30% increase in some dollars coming in the first time they get into a cadence. Do you have any stats or information around that?
I don't have any quantitative stats, but I will tell you that when we were doing them, I never, ever came away from one without project work or an increase in some sort of labor. And that wasn't why we went into them. We went into them because we wanted to elevate our relationship with our clients and take steps up the value ladder and really dive in and help them with their business. But I never came away from one without some sort of project work out of it, or without some sort of increase in MRR in there. And that is pretty prevalent across the board. Once you tackle these from a business perspective, not from I'm going to review all our patch metrics and all of that technical mumbo jumbo crap. Once you handle these from like a risk management perspective and a business improvement perspective, you typically always come away from them with projects or some sort of uptick in your MRR, or some sort of new services added on, because you're educating your clients around, or you're taking that time to educate your clients around what else is available and what else you have available to them, and what things that you can do to help them have a better future and brighter future. And that to me, it's kind of the byproduct of them is that they are just this amazing space for your clients to be able to be in an area where they can take a 20,000 foot view look at their own business with someone that's a trusted advisor beside them, helping them understand things like risk and understand things like innovation and whatever. But on the flip side, it just comes out as this amazing thing where you're just going to get an increase in revenue from it as well. And that's always a good thing. And you should never go into those things as that being your primary motivator. It's just an ancillary byproduct of doing them properly. You do them properly and you're going to have clients that want to spend more with you and want to invest more with you because they understand that you can help them more.
So I think that dovetails nicely into a question that Brian Blakely asked on LinkedIn, which you've already seen this question, but interestingly enough, I think we have way too many MSPs that do their QBR just with the owner or just with the CEO. Who do you think should be in the room when you're having this conversation? And I'm going to throw a curveball on top of his question, which is, and what impact do you think having different people in the room has on the outcome?
Right. It depends. That was my answer.
That was the answer.
Well, he's on brand. Okay.
There we go. And it honestly does depend. There is no definitive answer there because every single client is different and every single client has got different types of stakeholders that engage in the process in different ways. And so as the MSP, you've got to jump in and lead your client a little bit to help them understand who should be involved in this process. And quite often, if you're in the small business space where you're dealing with clients that are 50, 100 seats, anywhere up to that kind of space. You will have the owner, and you may have a general manager or a CEO and maybe a COO and sometimes a CFO in there. But you've got to be a little bit flexible there to figure out and go into your clients and figure out who are the people that are going to get the benefit from this. Who are the people that sometimes I've seen, like even in some of our clients, we had one where the PA to the CEO was a very important part of these ones. And we had another one where the office manager was a very important part because they were leading the process in a lot of these things. And so part of the job of the MSP is to come in with the client, probably with the primary contact, and say, okay, here's this process. Here's how it works. Here's some of the things that we go through in them. Here's the benefits that you're going to get out of it. Who in your business, and if we look across some of our other clients, these are the types of people that we get involved in them that get a lot of benefit from them. Who in your business would be the people that you think are going to benefit from being involved in these as well. And sometimes sorry, what are you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, I like the word you used earlier. You said stakeholders. Like, to me, that right there helps decide like who's got a stake in the things that we're going to change, the things that we're going to improve, the processes that drive the business, and the things that we need to discuss in these meetings. So I love that answer.
And you know, what you can do to tweak these up a little bit is you can mix it up a bit. You can say, well, maybe once if we're doing them on a monthly cadence, say we've got a larger client and we're doing them on a monthly cadence, perhaps month one, you have the CEO and one or two people from the accounts team, because you have that one fairly heavily accounts focused. Maybe month two, you might have people from the operations side, and month three, you might have people from sales and marketing side. And then you just cycle through those three people throughout the year. So each of them gets 4 meetings each year. Obviously with maybe the CEO and the general manager being in all of them, but the rest of the time they're deep dive, they're doing a little bit of a deep dive in those particular areas. And so you can mix it up and cycle. There is no hard and fast rule. You've got to, as I said, you've got to be okay to be a bit flexible here, operate with a framework, but be okay bouncing around in that framework a little bit to make it suit that particular client and the way that they're set up.
Well, you know, ideally, we're supposed to be working inside of our clients as some sort of a C-level executive,
correct,
working alongside of them, right? That's what this VCIO thing is that our industry has invented. That pulls us into our client as really a named employee in some cases, especially.
And you will integrate with or interact with lots of different departments through that thing there,
and work with them in the way that they work.
Correct. Yeah.
So what if the first time out, they won't come to the table? So that's, when we first had the conversation, we're like, it said debunk some myths of what we hear. So my client,
one of the first things I always encourage MSPs to do nowadays is to always position this TBR process as having a value on it, a price value on it. And the reality is these things are highly valuable, and lots of MSPs in the past, me horribly included for many years, I used to run these things because everybody said I had to do QBRs, and when you do QBRs, you have to go and talk about your patch levels and all of your own internal SLAs and all that sort of stuff. And I used to sit with the clients and their eyes would just completely glaze over. And I'm there going, but I have to do these. And the clients are going, I don't want to book them in. Like, why do I have to do these things? And I realized that I was being an idiot. And this was not about me. It was about the clients. And so I then started to figure out, okay, how can I make these things so that the client would happily pay extra to actually have these meetings with us? And so we tweaked them around and made it completely all about the client. And clients then loved booking these things in. And we then, as I said, I now encourage MSPs to actually put a value on these, so that when you're talking to your clients about them, you say, okay, the TBR, the regular TBR that we have with you, or SBR or whatever it is, each one of them is valued at $1,000 or $1,500. And if you want to do them outside of the cadence that we've got on, if you want to do maybe an extra one every second month or whatever, that's going to be an extra $1,500. And so when you say, hey, you've got your TBR coming up, if you need to book another one in, it's another $1,500 or whatever, and they start to see this value around it, that can help get some of the people that don't see the value yet in to start into the process. The goal, though, then is once they're hooked in and they've come and attended their first one, the whole goal is that you need to make it so darn worthwhile for them that they go, crap, like we need to be doing these. We're getting so much value out of these. I see where we need to make changes, and I'm comfortable that I can trust the process, and I'm trusting that it's not a sales pitch, because so many clients feel like these things were just a sales pitch. And I fell victim to it too, that I that I would go out and try and pitch lots of stuff in these things and not ask a lot of questions. And I just talk about just new services to people. And so they were scared that these things are just going to be another sales pitch. They just got to sit through with us. And so getting it to the point where your clients are desperately wanting to and waiting for the next one is one of the tricks to this whole process, is doing whatever you can to get them with that process. And sometimes you got to do that, that little thing of putting some value on it and encouraging them to come to the first one to tweak it up and to get them hooked into it. But then the value really, or the longevity in this whole process really comes from delivering high level value. And that's as simple as it is. You deliver that value and you get them seeing the value in it and really feeling like it's helped them, and it will self-perpetuate from then on in. You just got to get them past that first hump. And perhaps if you've been going through the process like I was, where you were horribly going through tech metrics and all of that kind of stuff and boring them and then trying to pitch them, you probably need a solid apology and a reframe in there before you go out and try and say, hey, do you want to come across to this new one? Because they're going to be on high alert that it is going to be what it was before. And you want to go in and give them that reframe and say, hey, we're introducing this new process now. Don't worry, it's not any of that old crap that we used to go through. We've evolved and we've learned, and we've got this new thing where it's actually, we're going to dive pretty deep into your business and how you guys can leverage technology better in your business now, rather than showing you boring metrics around our internal SLAs on there.
This is not your TBR. Right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly right. And be transparent with that. I'm always okay with being transparent, apologizing when we get things wrong, and letting clients know where we're evolving and whatnot. And the more the way I see it is, the more you're transparent with that, the more the client will be happy to come and give it another go and try it from a new perspective. And
they're more likely to trust you if you acknowledge that, like that.
Right. That you got it wrong.
You know, there's a lot of psychology that backs up your clients will actually treat you better if you go back and apologize and admit that you screwed up. Even if you're apologizing for something you didn't do or that you didn't have any control over.
Research actually says if you apologize about the weather, they'll be more inclined to help you.
You know, there's some horrible marketers out there at the moment that they actually go out and do something on purpose that's bad, so that they've got the opportunity to apologize, hoping it's going to be able to, which I hate.
That's hilarious.
That is not in our core value statement.
It's not, no, it doesn't fit in my core values, but there's people out there that do that. But because of that exact psychological thing, and that vulnerability breeds trust. And so it's okay. Highly important to do it from the right place.
Yeah, it's okay to go back to your customer and say, maybe we didn't nail it in the past, but working to improve the value we deliver.
Yeah, I can't tell you the number of times I went back to my clients and said, sorry, we got it wrong. Especially around pricing my MSP agreements. Like, there was a number of times I sat with clients and said, I'm sorry, we got it completely wrong because of X, Y, and Z. And now we've learned from that, and this is what we've got to do.
Yeah.
And then tough conversations to have, but they breed that trust.
Yeah, they really do. They absolutely do. So when you're talking about the sales cycle and how to sell in these meetings, what tips and tricks do you have for folks who are afraid they're going to go in sounding all salesy when they really need to be talking business process? Right? You've said both things tonight. Number one, I never go to these without coming out with a sale, and number two, it's got to be all about my customer. I'm not here to sell. How does that happen?
Yeah. The number one tip is just come at these things from a space of curiosity. Literally from curiosity. If you're just going in there and you're asking questions and you're making sure that you just stay on the point of asking questions, then you're going to steer clear of trying to sell all the time. And you're just going to be, okay, I'm curious. Where are you struggling here? Or what's happening over here? Or tell me about this part of your business, or tell me about your future plans and stuff like that. And if you come in from that state of curiosity, you very rarely cross to that state of excess pitching. Very rarely do you fall across to that. And so to me, it's just being curious, going and foster that curious look of your curious approach to things. And what I will also say is prepare for these things. You got awesome tools like your tool out there nowadays that allows people to prepare for these things, to know to have a great framework and a great agenda to go through in there, so that you're armed, so that you don't fall into the space of having a default back to trying to pitch a new product or position a new offer or position a new service or whatever. And the thing is, the other big tip I'll put in there is that just practice makes perfect. And the more you do these things, the more you pick yourself up on, hey, yeah, in that one, I kind of did go a little bit overboard here. So I've learned that lesson each time. And every single time you do one of these, you're learning little micro lessons so that the next time you go and do it, you're going to be in a better spot to ask a better question or dig a little bit deeper into an area that they wanted to dig into. And I know for me in the first, especially in my first years in my MSP, I used to go into QBRs or whatever we had them as back then, horribly nervous and anxious because I was dealing with clients that are turning over tens of millions and nearly up to $100 million in here. And here's poor old little me running my MSP from a horrible little old laptop from my dining room table from my pokey little apartment in the city. And I'm there going like, I don't even deserve to be in this room with these people. And so I always had these anxious feelings in there. But what happened is every time I went in there from that level of curiosity and just being curious about them and their business and whatnot, it gave me all of this, like there was nothing that I didn't have to give them advice, and I didn't have to go in there with this weight on my shoulder saying, you're going to have to consult in here. I didn't have to consult unless I uncovered something that I was able to consult with. And that came through that space of curiosity.
And it's funny, if you ask enough questions and the right questions, sometimes your customer gets to the point where they realize they need the new product or service without.
And that's the art. There is an art to that. If you can work that out and you can get it to the point where they think that they've come up with a solution in there, you're onto a winner.
I wonder if there's a way we could do that. Let me Google.
Exactly right.
So you talked about, kind of improving this every time and trying it and screwing it up. And I think we've all had those experiences, right? I had a customer way back in the day that was just a good old boy. And I went down to his very fancy furniture store where his truck is parked out back with a shotgun rack in the back and a fishing pole and all that. And I went in and said, Windows XP is going to die. I need $20,000 to make all your XP computers go away. And he went, if you come down here asking me for that kind of money ever again, I'll take you out back to the shotgun rack and shoot you. And I went, okay, that's bad. Let's not do that again. So I started to kind of build process and, and kind of work on fixing and improving it over time. But I'd like to hear from you a conversation about, or your position on process and kind of why it's necessary and why standardizing this process is so important, other than to avoid getting shot by a redneck with a shotgun.
Yeah, just to stay alive. That's why it's important. Process is important because exactly. Process really is important because it's a complex process, right? Like to run these things is a complex beast, and there is so many moving parts and so many things that you want to make sure that you cover, that if you try and do it all flying by the seat of your pants or all up in your head, you are going to drop the ball, and you're going to be in this continual state of just trying to manage the process at a base level. And whereas if for us in our MSP and in the tech tribe, whenever we have any sort of repeatable process, we always document the bejeepers out of it. And we do that because we know that these processes are complicated and they're going to evolve over time. And we want to be operating at a very high level in here and having high level conversations and doing high level things. And we can't do that if we don't have a process in place to make sure that we're not mixing up or forgetting or not doing any of the basic steps. And to me, that's one of the main reasons, is that just so that you make sure that you're continually improving and continually tweaking this complicated process in there and knowing what to follow.
I think that's something else. Important point right there is that iterative improvement, continuing to improve it. Right?
It is, yeah. Our whole business and my MSP ran on this, the Kaizen theory of continual incremental improvement. And the whole mantra with my team was, we're going to make mistakes, guys. We're going to stuff things up. We're going to do that all the time. And the first time we make a mistake, it's awesome. I love when we make mistakes because it's a chance for us to learn a lesson and never repeat it. And our mantra inside the business was make a mistake once and it's a lesson, and we have to tweak or adjust or create an SOP to make sure we never make it again. Make a mistake twice and it's a choice. And when it's a choice, there is consequences to choices. And we just ran with that mantra for many, many years. And our SOPs around everything, around TBRs and just all our sales side of the thing, the MSP and everything that we had in there was a big series of SOPs. And all of those SOPs started off very, 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 very basic. Sometimes they were just one line in the SOP. And every time we went through them, we added a little bit, or we tweaked it, or we improved it based on what we did wrong or what went right or whatever in the process. And over time, that whole process of Kaizen, or that continual incremental improvement, makes massive, 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 massive changes. We're in the first few years in business for me, I was always looking for the big wins and the big projects to work on and whatnot. I realized after time that that's not what business is about. Business is about the micro adjustments and the big things that you go in. And the more you operate from that continual incremental improvement space and learn from your lessons and improve all the time, the better you're going to be in a 1, 2, 3 year period. And you put in that hard work, and man, you can come out with some amazing stuff afterwards. It will surprise you.
You know, as the sales guy, nothing feels better than to come back and dunk on that $50,000 or $100,000 deal, right? That big, like, hey, I just had a huge win. But if you think about adding 10, 15, 20, 25% to all your clients slowly and iteratively over time, while making better friends with them, making better relationships with them, building more trust with them, they're going to stay around forever. It's not just one deal. And before you know it, it becomes 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 a year in new business that you just would have missed otherwise. So
correct. And that's when you look around at all at most MSPs nowadays, and this was in our MSP as well, as we were very good at bringing in a new client in, and we were very good at getting that first part done and getting them onboarded and getting them up to a basic level. But then we were not good at all at going deep with that particular client. And this whole TBR process is designed to do that, to go deep with these clients, or deep with your clients, because nowadays with the cybersecurity landscape that we've got out there, it's not a need, a nice to do to go deep and sell your cybersecurity offerings out there and make sure that they've got all of that in place. It's a must do. You have to go and do it. And this TBR process where you've got risk management in there and all of that stuff is a perfect vestibule or perfect space to be able to go and have those proper conversations and to go deeper with your clients out there. And I would say that, and this is coming from I don't have any quantitative data around this, but I would say something like 80% of MSPs out there have probably 90 or 95% of MSPs have probably 80% of their clients that they underservice in there. And a lot of it could be solved just by putting in a regular TBR cadence in there and making sure that you're covering your bases as you go through these things. And sure, you're not going to get all of your clients across all of your services on day one, but if you put this cadence in place, you'll see it happen over a period of a year or two, to the point where everybody is taking some dramatic steps up in their cybersecurity posture and their efficiency and their technology usage and all of those types of things, which is really where they're going to get the value.
And it can not only have an impact on the bottom line, but it can also have an impact on number of service tickets and utilization and all those other back-end KPIs that we worry about, because when they adopt more of your stack, they have less problems.
Correct. Standardization as well.
There's a hidden gem in there that too often gets overlooked. Marnie, you were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, while you're talking about cadence, we mentioned why we don't like QBR. One, Googling it gets you quarterback ratings, right? So right out of the gate.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Because our dumb American football has this QBR thing that,
Right. Oh, there you go.
So also not everyone needs a QBR, deserves a QBR, or wants a QBR, right? So do you have guidance around how frequently you should do a TBR for a client? I mean, you talked about getting to know your client, but can you dive more into that?
It depends.
Check.
and it honestly does.
Okay.
That should have been our drinking game. Every time Nigel says it depends, you have to have
a shot of tequila.
Too early for the Aussies to start, but over here on the East Coast, like
never too early. It's always 5 p.m. somewhere. I don't drink, so I couldn't. I got water here.
That's why you're gonna outlive us all, sir.
Maybe. I used to drink like a fish though, so I've got many years of recovery probably to go through. I've got to rebuild a liver from the ground up in there somehow.
It's an iterative process, a lot more.
There's a 3D printer for that somewhere.
There is, yeah. In terms of cadence, again, it honestly does depend. And part of you as the MSP are the person that's got to lead that conversation as to what the cadence should be for your particular client. And what I will say is that most in the SMB space, and I'm talking kind of 5 seats to maybe 150 seats out there, most will fit in either a monthly or a quarterly cadence in there, and maybe bi-monthly. Anything longer than 3 months to me is sometimes it would in our MSP, we used to have a few people on 6-month cadences, and they were people that were 3, 4, 5, 6 seat companies that just didn't need a lot during that time. In this day and age, I'd probably still have quarterly as the minimum in there for those people, because of the cybersecurity landscape has changed so much and dramatically since then. and they would be cut down versions of a QBR. They wouldn't be the high level QBR that we'd be running, or TBR that we'd be running for our 100-seat clients. That would be a very we'd go and prune the agenda down so that it worked just for them, so that we could get through stuff. But to me, it honestly does depend. And that's why I said you've got to have a framework, but it's got to be loose, and you've got to be flexible for the types of clients that you got in there. And we used to, with our cadences were 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month. We had some clients on 6 months, some on 1 month, some on 3 months. And that was mostly based around size, but there was other things that added to that. There was clients out there that were very technologically dependent and very technologically savvy, that knew that the investments that they always put in technology paid off big dividends, and they were happy to meet every single month because they knew that every time they met and invested into this stuff, they saw the benefits in their business. And then there was the other clients that were also probably similar size to them, that still, we hadn't been able to get them to the point of education around where they understood the investments in IT just yet. Maybe they were newer clients for us, or they'd been hurt in the past. And so they were on those 6 month cadences with our goal to speed it up in there and to get it further up in there as we educated them and got them used to the process. And it's this ongoing thing. It was always ongoing. We're always trying to, and you always will be always ongoing, trying to tweak and improve and going, okay, well, we've now got this client to the point where they really do value IT like crazy. We're going to speed up our cadence for these things now, because we can really start to get them some results now that they're happy to invest a little bit more and into the process and into whatever projects or infrastructure or whatever that we're probably going to suggest to them throughout it.
So we got a question specifically around that, and I think a lot of MSPs struggle with this one. So it's a really good and really important one. What do you do with a small 2 or 3 person client? What are you showing them? What are you doing with them in a QBR or a TBR or whatever? And the person here specifically mentions like a 3-person law firm, but you see it all over the place. A single doctor with a practice manager and an assistant, or a small attorney, a small lawyer, and any of that, accountant. There's a lot of these. I'm going to call them the micro businesses.
Yes.
What do you do different for them? What are you extracting to shrink it down and make
it very hard at that size, the 2 to 3 person size, because number one, they also, you've got to, there's going to be a certain cohort that will be happy to pay, because obviously you've got to make your managed service plans enough so that you're covering the price of these things as well in there. But
it's hard to recover that on 3 seats.
It is. On a 3-seat deal, it's just incredibly hard. We used to have a minimum 5 seats, and we had some clients that were 2 and 3 seats that would have to pay the minimum 5 seats with us to be a client. And just because it's so hard to do a proper offering. Now, what I would be doing if I had a 2 to 3 seat client nowadays that was on some sort of managed service agreement, we were giving them some sort of TBR process in there. The first things that I would be focusing on is risk. Like, risk is the biggest thing in our businesses nowadays. And I'd be making sure that I got an agenda item around risk, making sure that each time we're sitting with them, whether it's probably going to be quarterly at that stage, unless they're very, very proactive on things. But if it's that level, I'd be saying, okay, well, for this quarter, what little projects are we going to put in place to help you increase your security posture? And what risks do you currently have in the business that we need to address and outline and whatnot? And so risk would be my number one. And then number 2 would just be, what are you guys' plans, and what are your girls' plans for the next quarter, so that we can make sure that we've got everything ready for you to go and do. Now, in a 2 to 3 seat business, if they've been a 2 to 3 seat business for a long time, then they're probably not going to have many plans in there. They're just going to be wanting to do their own thing, and there's probably not going to be much to highlight there. But you never know. If they've got some ideas or some thoughts that they have been thinking about, and you can sit down and dive into that, you might be able to come up with a project for them and help them up with something. But to me, I'd be focusing primarily on risk to start off with. And that risk is not just around cybersecurity posture. It's also like your infrastructure risk, like refresh cycles and all of that kind of stuff as well. Now, that's where you've got to be a little bit careful, because that when you're only focusing on that, with these tiny clients, that's when they're going to start to see it as just a pitch fest or just a sales opportunity. And so to me, I'd be always going in to them, at least at that size, with just calling it a risk review or something along those lines, just to get the process in place. It is incredibly hard though at that size to get something that they tie into. We had a couple of 3-seat law clients, so I'm literally thinking about how they went through this process. And that was it. Most of it was just around making sure that we were continually improving their risk posture, or figuring out where their highest risks were in the business, seeding future things, like seeding things like, hey, Windows XP is about to expire, or is going to be expiring in 6 months' time, whatever. So we need to start to get a plan in place for that now, and just seeding little things like that. In terms of diving in and doing big stuff, they're just at that size business.
There's nothing big to do, right?
Nothing big to do.
Yeah.
It's like 3 computers nowadays. You don't even have a server anymore. Like those that 3-seat client server, that law firm that we had, they actually had a server. But nowadays you wouldn't even have any of that in there. So it's
yeah. At my MSP, when they were that size, we wouldn't take them on unless they'd go 100% cloud, and we would put them in our cloud RDS environment, which really minimized our risk and exposure, because we could throw the
standardized everything.
And it wasn't cheap. I mean, they were top payers per seat, but it was really the only way we could make any money at it.
Right.
And that's the other thing.
But it wasn't cheap sticker price, but I bet you it was cheap total ROI.
They got value. They certainly got value. And they were the first clients we ever had that could work from anywhere. You know, they were
there you go.
First ones in there. So, and Kirk Lesser brings up a great point. He says, when they onboard a client, they do a 2-week, 1 month, 2 month, and then they retreat to quarterly to make sure they've got their new client aligned,
ramp it up,
that they've really built trust and kind of got them seeing the value in that quarterly conversation.
I love it.
And I can really see an onboarding where, you know, anything that you drop the ball on gets called out in those meetings, and you just make sure everybody stays aligned or gets aligned, and kind of blend the cultures, if you will, and get used to your new client. So lots of value there.
Inside the Tech Tribe, we've got I think it's 114 step new client onboarding checklist in there. And parts of it are those initial meeting reviews, just to do the check-in with your new client to make sure that you guys are doing things the way they expect, and they're doing things the way you expect, and just to keep that cadence going. So I love that defined times around it, the 1 week, the 2 week, the 1 month, and then into the 3 month quarterly schedules. And what you might find is that there will be some clients that once you dive into creating these TBRs as highly business valuable, you might find that some will prefer to stick at that 1 month cadence rather than going all the way out to a 3 month cadence with you.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I had clients, I've said this before, I had clients that were just nicer human beings if I talked to them every month.
Exactly right.
Did you start in break fix, or were you managed from the door?
No, I started in break fix. Yeah, I went through that whole process.
So you got the sales pitch that was, you know, buy all this remote software. It'll save you the price of a human being. You never have to drive on site. You can solve 95% of things remotely, blah, 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 blah. All the stuff that we bought hook, line, and sinker. So what do you feel like that did to your relationships with your clients when you all of a sudden went from walking down the hall, knowing who was in each office and every door and knowing everything about every client, to having to do it all remotely? Yeah.
So we even in break fix, when I started in 2003, we were already doing, or 2002, we were still doing everything remotely that we could, back using PC Anywhere, it was back then. So we had that across all our clients.
Okay.
And so when I started there, we were already doing the remote work, but we knew well enough then that remote work is not enough. It's just, you do the remote work when it's just going to save you a truck roll, is all it's for. Right. It's not going to save you. It's not going to fix the relationship, or it's not going to make the relationship. And so the person that I was working for back then was still very heavy on making sure that we go out and see our clients and go out and visit them. So we kind of, luckily, I missed out on a lot of that problem where I shifted from on-site to remote, because we were already doing remote all the way from the very beginning, and we already knew the disadvantage of being 100% remote dropped the relationship level if you went in on it. So we're kind of lucky there.
I think that relationship level is super important, and I think sometimes it's overlooked.
Yeah. And for our MSP, even when I sold it in 2016, we still had, any of our clients that were on managed service plans, we still had, even though we could do pretty much everything remotely, we still had engineer walkabouts as part of their offerings. And what we did with them is, and we get lambasted by tons of other MSPs saying, "Oh, you're mad. You shouldn't be doing them. Like, you've got it all remote. Like, just do it all remotely. You're losing money." And we made sure that we priced them into our agreements so that they were profitable on them. And we had our PSA system give advance warnings to our clients when they were going to happen. So just say, "Hey, you've got your next engineer visit coming up on this day. Make sure that you got anything that you need from them." And what would happen was that engineer would then just go and do a walkabout, and they'd go and check things in server rooms to make sure there's no red lights that we haven't missed, and do a few cleanups and whatever in there. And we had a checklist for it. But the bulk of it was going around and sitting with people and making sure that they had everything that they needed. And the feedback that we got from clients from those meetings was so good that we kept doing them more and more and more, because the feedback that we quite often heard was, we just love it when Luke or so-and-so just comes out and on site, and I've just got those weird little quirky questions that I just want to ask, and I don't want to call the help desk for it. And he just walks past and he fixes it for me, or he does this. And I could see the team deal with him and just get things done that we would just never do if it was 100% remote. And so we always made sure that we still had that on-site component in there, even from a tech level, not just from an account management / relationship level. We still kept putting it in there to keep that relationship going, because the alternate for a lot of these clients is, hey, we're going to go, because we don't see, and I see this happen all the time, is an MSP comes in and says, okay, we're going to try and go fully remote in here, and it's going to save you some money and whatever. But then after some time, the client's going, well, hang on, we're not seeing anybody anymore. And we kind of miss having someone that we can just ask questions around and can sit beside us at the desk every now and then and can show us through things and help us through things and whatever. And they go and either hire their own internal person to go and do that, like their own internal IT person to do that, or they go out and get snapped up by another MSP that says, hey, we're going to spend some time on site with you, walking around and understanding how your team works and understanding how we can make their day easier.
We'll be more personable. Yeah.
Be more personable. Yeah.
And an angry client is a silent client, because you don't know if
they
are at risk of churn, right? Like that is, if they're angry, they're still working with you and having a conversation about it. Silence could be they're ready to walk out the door.
Oh yeah. Yep. 100%.
Yep. So I want to get into a little bit of kind of where things are evolving to. We talked about how QBRs started off as this opportunity with not a whole lot of tools to have to cobble something together to go present to your client and have this conversation. And it's grown into an industry where we have tools. Lifecycle Insights has built a tool. We have competitors out there who have built tools. There's better ways to do this now. But now the emerging thing really is this VCIO role that a lot of folks are trying to jump into. I think there's a big difference between an account manager and a VCIO. And one of our friends who is, again, from LinkedIn, a really, really smart guy, really, really good VCIO, wants us to talk about the difference between that account manager and that VCIO, because I think there's some misunderstanding there, and there's some account managers trying to do VCIO work in this industry and maybe missing the boat. So what's your opinion on the difference between those two, other than the $50,000 a year salary?
Well, in a lot of small / nimble MSPs, they both, the same person has both roles in there, because there's not enough budget to have the two people in the position. But the VCIO, the main thing about that role is it's strategy level. It's all about strategy level. It's the seat at the boardroom table. You don't have an account manager sitting in a C-suite boardroom talking about budgets and talking about infrastructure projects and talking about innovation projects and whatnot. That's what the VCIO role is. The account manager is making sure that you're happy with the way things are working backwards and forwards. And so that's in an MSP, that can include things like if you need to get some orders placed through procurement, it can go through an account manager. If you need to review and refresh your agreement, it can go through your account manager. All of those very lower level tasks can go through typically account management stuff. But as I said at the beginning, what typically happens and invariably happens in smaller / I like to call small MSPs nimble MSPs, because it's not as it's nicer. But what invariably happens is the VCIO and the account manager are both the same role in there, because the MSP is not big enough to have them both in there. But if that person can, as they're going and doing their roles, can at least think, hey, do I have my VCIO hat on here, or do I have my account management hat on here? They can at least be thinking about the way to approach things in there. And over time, you will hopefully get to the point where you can have a dedicated account manager and a dedicated VCIO. But to me, the big difference is that it's strategy. Like VCIO is coming in at a strategy level. They're coming in at that like CIO level, you're in the C-suite. That's as simple as it is. When you're working with let's go across to like the printer industry, where you might have 3 or 4 or 5 different big multi-function printers and whatever from a print management company. And that print management company's got an account manager in there. And that account manager is the person that you call up every time that you want to renew an agreement on a new printer, or you want to go and get quotes on something, or whatever it is that you want to do. And and that person doesn't need a seat at the C-suite table. They're not helping out with strategy. They're not helping out with those things. They're there to make sure that you're happy with the way that the relationship is going between your two businesses. They're not there to guide the direction of your business. That's
so you sold your MSP in 2016. Fast forward to 2021. If you had grown to the point where you had account management and VCIO, are you bringing both of them to a QBR or just one?
Oh, good question. It depends.
I was gonna say, does it depend on who has the relationship? Because if the account manager really does own it.
Well, hopefully both have relationship. You don't want
absolutely
want to have anyone with full relationship in there, but it's going to honestly depend. At a small 2 to 3 seat law firm, you're not going to want to have to roll an account manager and a VCIO out to these meetings because it's just going to make the cost of the agreements just not tenable. But if you've got a 100-seat client out there and the account manager can act essentially as a PA to the VCIO, so the VCIO can be the person sitting there planning out the strategy, figuring things out, and the account manager is essentially there to be able to support them and take some notes and go back and make sure that everything that's been bring back the action items, everything that's been talked about can be turned into a quote or can be turned into a proposal or can be turned into a report or whatever it happens to be across for them. And so
I love that answer.
I think
I do think we have we have some MSPs that have 3, 4, 5 account managers rolling up to a VCIO or with one VCIO supporting them, you know, at the upper level. So that's a good one.
And an account manager, it's a good logical step to jump up into the VCIO role as well. So if you've got account manager on your team that you feel is got VCIO capabilities in there, then by all means, it might be worth sending them out to that 2 to 3 seat law firm, even though you're going to lose money sending them out on to that particular deal, because you're going to get the ancillary benefit of training them up on how to be a good VCIO, because they're going to be just immersed in seeing how the VCIO is running those things.
Right. No, I think that's a great point. And I think, you know, there's got to be a place for those account managers to go, right? One of the big struggles in MSPs is where do I go next? Because I'm in an office of 5 or 7 or 10. Like, what's my growth? What does my growth look like? And that's
account management can go that route, the VCIO route, or obviously the sales rep route, and go external sales or whatever it happens to be. But that's a matter of, as the leader of the business, you look and you look at each person, you think, is this person going to go that way? And you sit with them and you talk to them about the different career paths that they've got. And if they are the person that could fit better into the VCIO role, you start to push them down that route and get them involved in the process as much as you can.
Yep. Okay. Tim's going to ask us a specific question here. They do mostly VCIO services and kind of programming and development. They're not a really traditional stack MSP today, but what he's really trying to figure out is not being a traditional stack MSP and not having some of the same client relationships that others do. You know, how do they show value in that TBR that doesn't have a lot of measurable tasks, that doesn't have a lot of to-dos or such in it?
Right. So he's, just to be good, do you know Tim?
I do.
Alex?
I do.
You do? So do you know a little bit about him? So his business then, when they go in and tackle things from a VCIO perspective, are they more coming away with or helping their clients understand how to build better ERPs internally and build all their internal development things? Or are they actually still tackling it from the MSP perspective as well, but knowing that there's another MSP providing the services?
I think they're more tackling it from a compliance and MSSP side, you know, acting as a true CIO, as opposed to, you know, from the MSP turned CIO side.
Right. Okay.
So they're helping.
And so what can you show in a TBR that doesn't have a ton of measurable tasks? I'm not sure what that part of the question means.
Yeah, I'm not sure I get it either, but I think
So
really.
does he mean not a part of the stack, right? Not a tool, but a policy, a procedure, a process that they should put in place as opposed to a piece of equipment?
Right. It says he helps them with their revenue life cycle, so budgeting and whatnot, understanding what makes them their dollars in there. To me, like, again, there's those key areas that you fall back on in this thing, and obviously risk. I've mentioned risk a lot in here. Risk is one of the biggest ones in there of all, and I don't know if that's something that you can tackle from the perspective you're going in from, because I haven't seen people going from that perspective very often. It's not a common way to go about it, but to me, still comes back to the same core things, the same going to understand their risk and figure out where they've got risk and figure out the stop gaps for it.
Well, and
in
I go
terms
back
of
to something you said earlier, you know, what is it? What these things are really about, their meetings about them, not about us.
yeah, correct. Yeah.
So go in there asking questions, learning about their business,
just
learning them.
what have they
continuing
got
to
coming
learn them.
up? Where are they planning to go? What do they see as opportunities in the marketplace that they perhaps feel that they can capitalize on with the help of technology or with your help in there somehow?
Yeah, I think if I understand this, I think I even know what client he's talking about, and I think he's got a situation where he's with them, if not monthly, weekly, and just struggling to figure out how to deliver value that often. And I think the other advice I would give is sometimes it's safe to separate the big strategic conversation from the tactical conversation.
Yes,
we have these projects in motion. Here's an update on your projects, on your this, on your that. Here's where we are, and that's an update call. That's a touch call. And then there's a strategic conversation, which happens monthly or quarterly.
Planning out the yearly roadmap of what we're going to be working on.
And the plan may be in cases like that to help separate those two. In my mind.
If you've got a deal or a client where you are working on a weekly cadence of this for this kind of stuff, you're essentially that's the area that you like, that strategic level coming in and saying, okay, these are our projects, and making sure that you've got them all mapped out for the year, and then offering them that update cadence. You're essentially becoming a pseudo project manager in there, for want of a better word. And I see that's probably the layer to, if you've got that sort of cadence in, then that's the layer that you're going to be doing, and just sitting with the C-suite team or whoever you're sitting with and saying, hey, we've done the strategic planning once a month or whatever it is, but here on our regular once a week one, here is the updates from the past week of where we're up to on all these projects and initiatives and whatnot.
Awesome. I like that. You've now built out a new role, and you're going to want to patent this before somebody beats you to it. But we now have the VPM, the virtual project manager. Yeah,
virtual project manager. Yeah.
That'll be the next thing. That'll be 2022 for all the MSPs to sell virtual project.
And it's not really manager. That's why I don't like that word. It's more a project overseer in there, like the person, and that's essentially, it's one of the VCIO or one of the CIO's roles in a larger business is that making sure that the projects have got a cadence and they're working towards them, and delegating out to the project managers to get them rolled out. But essentially, I'm assuming you're taking some management responsibilities inside this business as well at that kind of level.
I got a lot of Nigel takeaways today. I wrote down some good ones, so there'll be some good quotes following this one.
Good.
But with that, I think we've chewed up all of the time we promised to take of yours. So we are so grateful for you bringing it to us. One softball question to ask you on the end: whiskey or beer?
I saw that one pop up there, and there you go. Tim says VPD, Virtual Project Director. That's the better one. Director. Get rid of that term.
Down to water. So does whiskey or beer even count as a question?
No. So. Yeah, I gave up both a number of years ago, drinking far too much of both. And I do love both. My brother owns a beer brewery out here.
Really? Now we have a field trip. We're going to the Tech Tribe. We're going to visit.
Well, I would love, actually, since that question is water, if you would give, again, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever you want on the Tech Tribe, because I do think you provide a ton of value. So I'd love to hear your version of what you bring to the party.
So before I mentioned, it was just teaching people all our mistakes, but essentially the nuts and bolts of it is it's a membership program. It's $49 per month. That's the only offering that we've currently got in the marketplace. We've got no termed contracts or anything like that. People join and they stay because they like what we give them. And we essentially, it's full of stuff like managed service agreement templates and training on how to run TBRs. We've got an entire TBR workshop in there that I think you've been through, Alex, or you've at least had a look at it, Alex. We've got an entire TBR workshop in there. We've got a community full of 4,500 amazing humans in there having great conversations every day about all the perils and the challenges and the fun stuff that goes along with running an MSP. We've got a bunch of industry experts that hang out inside that community, answering questions and helping people out. And then there's about 150 maybe resources now that are inside the tribe. That are all just templates and documents and training and resources designed to help you better run an MSP. And that's it. We also got we've got marketing packs that people get access to.
All.
And
that's all.
There's a few other things in there.
The TBR course alone, the TBR course alone is worth an entire year's subscription. I will say that. So
thank you.
This is the best value in technology today, other than Lifecycle Insights. It's a close second. No, I mean, Nigel, I appreciate you making the time to talk to us. I think you're just a great voice from across the pond. Giving us give us a different take on everything, a different spin on everything. I always enjoy it. It was great to actually get to talk face to face as opposed to just pinging back and
In the
forth
forums.
time zones align. Right. I know if I'm at 2 a.m. sending a message, then I'll wake up and Nigel will have answered me. So I love hanging out in the tech tribe and trying to help folks out and learn things while I'm out there. It's a fantastic platform. So if you haven't checked it out, go check it out.
Thank you.
The thing Nigel hasn't mentioned is a lot of vendors are out there giving away tribal perks. So if you're joining the tech tribe, there's also a lot of save money.
I forgot about that one. There's about
pays for
150 vendor discounts for MSPs in there around the place.
And that.
Yeah.
And that.
So
There's a few
just
others.
tons of value and a great platform. So Nigel, thanks so much for making time for us.
Thank you.
We greatly appreciate it.
Very
That
much.
was fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day. We'll enjoy it.
No worries. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Tim. Worth the $50 just joined. Thank you, Tim.
That's it. Thanks, everybody.